Welcome to the Legacy Radio Network. This is the Everything Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Dennis Tubbergen. We are here every week at this time, and awfully glad you decided to join us today. We have a great show lined up for you. We are going to catch up, or play an interview, I should say, with Senate candidate Pete Hoekstra. Caught up with him on the campaign trail this past week, and he was nice enough to give us his time. We're going to get his take on what's going on around the world at some American embassies, and, of course, we're going to get his take on the election. We're going to get his take on economic policy and whether or not we're headed down the right path and what Mr. Hoekstra might suggest that we do. So very glad that we caught up with him this week. Also, I'll be talking about an article that ran in the Financial Post. Bill Gross, who runs the world's largest bond fund, said this past week, you cannot solve a debt crisis by adding more debt. I agree with that. However, I disagree with something else Mr. Gross said. We'll talk about that on today's program. Also, can you make a swimming pool out of the Grand Canyon by using a garden hose? That, in my view, is what the Federal Reserve is trying to do. I'll explain. And I'm also going to share with you what makes today different, this economic winter season in which we find ourselves. What makes today different than the last economic winter season of the 1930s? A terrific article this past week about the long wave versus the printing press. I'm going to share that with you on today's program as well. I'd like to remind you that if you have not yet requested your 2012 guide, Surviving a Market Crash, you can do that by going to investingapproach.com. All you have to do when you go to the website investingapproach.com is enter your name and the address that you would like your guide sent to, and we will be very glad to get it out to you free of charge and no obligation, just simply a discussion of where we think things are economically speaking, where they're headed, and certainly some strategies that you might consider to protect you, your family, and your nest egg. So go to investingapproach.com and request the guide. Consider it a free second opinion from the folks here at the Legacy Radio Network. So, again, investingapproach.com is where you'd go to get that. Also, if you've not attended one of our discovery groups in the last 3 months, I'd like to invite you to go to personallegacyseminars.com, personallegacyseminars.com, to learn more about what we discuss at the discovery groups. And if you'd like also at that website, you could register for one of our discovery groups. We have 3 coming up in the Grand Rapids area in the next week and a half. We'll be at the Highlands Golf Club in Grand Rapids on Tuesday, October the 2nd. We'll be up at Boulder Creek in Belmont on Thursday, October the 4th. And we'll be out at Watermark Country Club on Tuesday, October the 9th. That is also in Grand Rapids. personallegacyseminars.com to get more information or to register for one of our discovery groups. Also, reminder, everythingfinancialradio.com has all the archived interviews with our guest experts. I'm told from a number of folks that they enjoy going there and listening to the interviews or re-listening to the interviews as the case may be. That's everythingfinancialradio.com. I am pleased to have back with me on the Everything Financial Radio Show Congressman Pete Hoekstra. Pete is a successful businessman from West Michigan. He represented Michigan's 2nd Congressional District in the U.S. Congress from 1983 to 2010. He has worked at Herman Miller as a successful corporate background. He graduated from Hope College in 1975 and has an MBA from the University of Michigan. He is currently running for Senate against incumbent Senator Debbie Stabenow. Congressman Hoekstra, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, it's good to be with you. Thank you.
You know, we want to get to jobs and the economy, but first, Pete, let's discuss some of the recent world events, and then we'll get to your campaign for Senate. I found a quote from National Counterterrorism Center Director Matt Olson last week testifying to Congress that the 4 Americans that were killed in Libya were in the course of a terrorist attack, and now the president has now said that the attack was more than a mob action in response to an anti-Islam film. There seems to be confusion as to what really happened in Libya and what was the cause of it. Give us your take on what happened in Libya.
Well, I think the only confusion of what happened in Libya was by the president and his closest advisors, his press secretary, and also his ambassador to the UN, and on occasion Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. They kept referring to this as, spontaneous violence. They didn't really know what the causes were, but they thought it was probably a reaction to a video that was against the Prophet Muhammad, which there was a trailer of that had become public. Of course, that had become public 6 months ago. But I've got lots of friends in the intelligence community, the national security apparatus, and really what we've learned since then is almost probably within 24 hours after the event, the intelligence community, the State Department, they knew that this was a planned, coordinated attack, military-type attack on our consulate in Benghazi. Our ambassador was targeted in that attack, it was clearly a terrorist attack targeted to happen on 9/11 and celebrate their attacks against us 11 years ago. So, it's outrageous. The president, I believe the president and others on his staff, they misled us. It reflects the failure of his policy in the Middle East. We've got to go back and we've got to rethink about what we're doing in the Middle East. The radical jihadism is still a strong movement.
Pete, the U.S. embassies, I won't say they were targeted, but there certainly were at least mob actions in Sudan, Tunisia, Yemen, to name a few. Are all these actions related or coordinated, in your opinion, or are they just were some of these really reactions to this film trailer?
I don't think there's any I don't think there's any analysis out there that says that this is in any way a reaction to that film. I mean, the president has totally exaggerated that claim. In Egypt, again, it happened on 9/11. For those people who have actually taken the time to study it and listen to the chants of the crowd, if anything, other than it being 9/11, it was that people in this crowd wanted the freedom of the blind sheikh who's serving a lifetime sentence in the United States for his planned activities to blow up the Holland Tunnel in New York. And so these are coordinated anti-American attacks to show their continued frustration with the United States and with others about the lack of progress in the Palestinian issue, resolving that issue, the lack of progress in economic development, and just an anti-American hatred. The president in 2009 said that he was going to reset the relationship with the Middle East. They read a whole lot of things into that reset, most of which have not happened. So they are now angrier with the United States than they may have been in the last 20 years.
Pete, I'd like to shift gears a moment because you are in the middle of a campaign for U.S. Senate against Debbie Stabenow. One of the points that you make on your campaign website is that you voted against the $1 trillion stimulus plan while Stabenow voted for it. You know, in your view, looking back, what would have been a more correct policy response to the financial crisis at the time?
Well, remember, there was a couple of votes that we had. Number one, we had the vote for the bank, troubled asset relief program. I talked to a lot of folks in the banking community, a lot of my business friends here in Michigan, and so I ended up voting for the troubled asset relief program because I wanted to maintain our financial systems. A lot of people said the systems were going to collapse. We then got to 2009, and we had a new president. We still had a weak unemployment, but what he and Debbie Stabenow said is, let's spend $1 trillion. In reality, it wasn't. Number one, I don't believe government spending is going to generate economic growth. We would have been better staying on the sidelines or doing tax breaks so that businesses and individuals could stimulate economic activity and not the government. The second thing is the things that they spent these programs on were the pet peeves. So these were the pet projects of the Democrats in Congress. They weren't about building infrastructure and those kinds of things that might have had a lasting impact. They were primarily, it was spent on social programs and these types of things that grew these programs for 1 year, but then the money was gone. And so, you know, the end result is that close to $1 trillion of expenditures really had no lasting impact on the economy. The alternative would have been, you know, tax breaks either for business or for individuals, drive business and drive consumer spending, not drive government spending.
Pete, we've got about 40 seconds left in this segment, and we're going to have you back on the other side of the break. If someone wants to learn more about your campaign, wants to learn more about your positions on the issues, what would you advise them to do?
We'd love to have their help. They can go to Hoekstra for Senate, HOEKSTRA for FOR Senate.com.
All right, we'll resume our conversation with Mr. Pete Hoekstra after these words. Stay with us.